behalf of CALPRO, we're excited to have you join our webinar focused on designing a single set of learning objectives for integrated education and training. I will be presenting and facilitating today. I'm a senior technical assistance consultant at CALPRO, and prior to joining CALPRO and AIR, I was an adult ed program teacher and manager for many years at LaGuardia Community College in the City University of New York. And I did design and implement and manage several different IET programs, so I'm really thrilled to be able to be here with my California colleagues. And Catherine Green, our director of CALPRO, is also joining us today. We have a few other terrific presenters. This webinar is being presented in collaboration with CASAS, and Lori Howard, our CASAS colleague, is the program specialist for WIOA's Adult Education and Integrated English Language and Civics program. So welcome to Lori. We'll hear from her in a bit. And I'm also very thrilled to have Yelena Zimon from the Fremont Adult and Continuing Education School and Evelyn Jackson from Huntington Beach Adult School here to share their experiences implementing IET within their programs, and they'll be here to offer us some insight and advice from the field. So I'm glad we have our presenters here today. Also, as part of our team is Vicky on tech support and Marcella Movit, who will be helping us monitor the chat today. Our goals for the next hour and 15 minutes together are really just to learn more about the purpose and importance of creating a single set of learning objectives for the IELCE IET program and for submitting your plans in 2020. And Lori Howard is going to share more with us about that. We also want to understand, how to set the stage for that successful collaboration and the development of that integrated curriculum. So we're going to be talking about how to kind of set yourself up for success around this work. We're going to work together to identify the features of strong integrated learning objectives and how they're developed, and practice those objectives a little bit together today. We're going to hear, as I said, from two of our adult ed colleagues in California who have done remarkable work and sort of the lessons and advice they have for us around IET. And finally, we're going to share with you some additional training opportunities that both CALPRO and CASAS have for helping you as you continue to develop and strengthen your IET programs. So to that end, and to meet our goals, we're going to take a look and just make sure we all understand what is integrated education and training and the definition of that, and sort of how an IET model works. What are some of the key components of that? We're going to talk about the collaborative process that's involved with developing a single set of learning objectives, and then take a look at some objectives and how to put them together and how it really works. Hear from our practitioners and have an opportunity, hopefully, for your questions and answers today. As we said earlier, we will be using the chat, so if you have a question or a comment, feel free to post it. Right now, we'd love to find out who's in the room with us today. So if you could use the chat function to just briefly introduce yourself, where you're from, if you could give a sentence or two about your IET plans or the programs that you've implemented and your goals for today's webinar, that would be great. So I'm going to give everybody a minute just to post those.
And if anyone else is sitting with you, we'd love to know their names as well.
Great. I see some coming in. Thank you, guys. We won't have time today, since we're such a big group today, to welcome everybody individually, but I'd love for you all to read in the chat and see who's here with us. And we'll keep going. Thank you all very much for posting. Welcome. So first of all, just to kind of get a sense of the IET experience that we have in the room today with us, I'd love it if you could take a quick poll and answer, where are you in in the IELCE IET implementation process. So are you just starting? Do you have a basic program plan in place? Have you already piloted a program? Do you have a few programs running, or are you an old hat at this? So let us know. I see some responses coming in. We're going to give you a minute, and then we'll share the results with you. Okay, looks like a majority of you have voted. So Vicki, can you go ahead and share the results? So it looks like some of you are just starting or have a program plan in place. About a third of you have already piloted a program, and a little less than half of you have a few programs running. So that's terrific and great. We're looking forward to having those of you who are working and have been working on this for a while share some of your insights with us as we go. Okay. So before we get started, I'd like to ask Lori Howard, my colleague from CASAS, to help us frame the purpose for today's webinar and highlight some of the upcoming IELCE IET work that's going to be going on. Welcome, Lori.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. CASAS also welcomes you to this webinar, and we're excited that you're participating today to learn more about how to develop or improve your IET, IELCE programs and your IELCE plans. We hope you will share the information you learn from this webinar with your colleagues. Next slide, please. So why did we plan this webinar? When the California Department of Education and CASAS reviewed the IELCE plans for 2018-19, we noticed that almost all of the agencies needed technical assistance with writing a cohesive single set of learning objectives. So our purpose today is to help you create and implement an effective single set of learning objective to use in your IELCE IET programs and to submit them on your 2020 IELCE plan. As you'll learn, IET IELCE programs function best when administrators, career technical education teachers, and ESL teachers work together as a team to plan and implement their programs. So in this webinar, we'll demonstrate that a cohesive single set of learning objectives is drawn from the collaboration of ESL and career technical education teachers, which includes the review and discussion of the goals and objectives of the CTE course. The result of this is that ESL and CTE teachers come to agreement on the English language learners need to meet the objectives of the CTE course. Next, please. So there's a lot to learn about developing a single set of learning objectives, so we've planned follow-up sessions to this webinar at each of the EL Civics conferences in 2020. The sessions will focus on hands-on practice, writing a single set of learning objectives, and information on how the objectives are connected to COAPs and IELCE plan requirements. Another presentation at the conferences will give instructions on completing the online IELCE plan successfully, including a little bit more clarity on program coordination and support. So please send appropriate staff members to the EL Civics conference near you to participate in this follow-up training. I want to remind you that the next IELCE plan is due on April 30th, 2020, and the plan for 2020 will be similar to the 2019 plan, but improved with changes that we hope will make it easier to complete. The IELCE plan review process for 2020 will include a more rigorous focus on an effective single set of learning objectives, as well as on program coordination and support. And that's why we're glad you're participating in this webinar today.
Great. Thank you so much, Lori. I think that gives us a great idea of what's coming and why we're here. So many of you are experienced IET practitioners and have spent some time already thinking about IET, but I do want to take a few minutes to look at the definition of IET a little bit, and also some of the key design elements before we really dig into unpacking integrated objectives, just so that we share sort of a common framework and understanding. So the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, WIOA, defines IET as a service approach, that provides adult education and literacy activities concurrently and contextually with workforce preparation activities and workforce training for a specific occupation or occupational cluster for the purposes of educational and career advancement. So essentially, the idea behind the model is to combine occupational skills training with basic and academic skills instruction and ESL instruction to increase and expedite the educational and career advancement of our adult learners. Definition definitely helps us frame the service approach. But my question as a practitioner is always, how does this translate into a program design, and how do we plan and use this definition to help us understand what we need to do to design an IET program? So I'd like to take a look for a minute at some of what the field has sort of indicated are some of the key program design elements that undergird successful IET models. These are elements that have emerged nationally and are really things to consider as you build or continue to improve your IET models. They include, first, the notion that IET is really a new way of doing things. It's a collaborative program design that requires building new partnerships and collaborative leadership and the development of a unified program, often bringing together different departments, certainly more than one instructor, and sometimes different organizations or different members of a consortium. So you might have your career technical education department on campus or as part of another organization, your adult ed program, and even sometimes you're collaborating with a college for admissions or Workforce One, variety of partners in this integrated program design. The second big feature is this idea of concurrent enrollment. So this is really essentially where students are enrolled in both the adult ed and the career training programs simultaneously rather than sequentially. And California offers two options for the teaching model: alternating teaching or co-teaching. Another big consideration when you think about your IET program design is the wraparound support. Students in these models often need support to stay retained, support to transition to careers or additional post-secondary education. And many times in IET models, there'll be pretty robust provisions for the support to retain and transition the students to work. And then the big focus that we're kind of taking today is on integrating the learning outcomes. Oftentimes, people refer to integrated education and training as the contextualization of basic skills. And that's really bringing the strengths and skills of the two experienced instructors, the adult ed ESL instructor. Somebody, I can hear some background noise. We might want to mute. Thanks, guys. I don't know if I'm the only one hearing that. But the idea is to bring together the skills and expertise of the adult ed and career technical instructor to integrate instruction and accelerate student learning. And those instructors are charged with developing a single set of learning objectives, which include workforce training, adult literacy, and workforce preparation. Let's look quickly at the two models that California offers, just so we can get a sense of, when you're designing your program, what your options are in terms of the teaching models. California asks IET providers to pick a model, either alternating teaching, and that's where students are enrolled in two different but coordinated courses. In this model, an ESL teacher and a career technical ed teacher or a CTE teacher are teaching in two different classrooms, and students attend the two courses at different times, but the coursework is coordinated and the objectives for both the courses are integrated together. In the co-teaching model, both an ESL teacher and a career tech ed teacher are teaching in the same classroom, at least for a portion of the time, and students are co-enrolled in the ESL and CTE courses. So I'd like to ask you now, for those of you who have piloted or have implemented several programs, to take this poll. Which IET teaching model are you implementing? Alternating teaching, co-teaching, both, or you haven't decided yet?
And Amy, as people are responding to that, we have a question in the chat about concurrent enrollment. If they have a teacher who's both a CTEC teacher and an ESL teacher, can that one teacher cover both ESL and the training portion by alternating days within one classroom setting? And would that qualify as an IET program design?
Can I answer that?
Please.
So this is Lori. Yes, so if the teacher is certificated in both ESL and the career technical education course, one teacher could teach both sections of it in a, what I would put in quotes, a co-teaching with themselves situation.
Great. Thanks, Lori. So we can publish the results of the poll now. So you'll see the majority of you are doing alternating teacher, or 40% of you. 28% of you have reported co-teaching. A number of you are doing both, and I think that's terrific, because part of the decision for which alternating or co-teaching model to use is oftentimes determined by the actual program that you're building, your students' availability, your instructors, and the actual course content. So you do kind of make those decisions about which model to use in a context. And I see some folks are still deciding, so thank you. So as I said, today's focus, each of these program elements is really important to consider, but today's focus is on how to integrate the learning outcomes to develop students' foundational skills and basic skills simultaneously and in the context of the occupational training and workforce preparation. Specifically, we're going to focus on unpacking how to create a single set of learning objectives to guide the instruction and also meet those IELCE IET plan requirements. Let's take a look for a minute at integrated instruction. So at the heart of integrated instruction is the single set of learning objectives in the middle here, and the integrated lessons that teachers are developing that incorporate the specific workforce training, the basic skills and literacy development, and the workforce preparation activities. Sometimes we call those workforce preparation activities employability skills, and those are the ones that are required in the workplace, things like digital literacy, teamwork, critical thinking, and self-management. And the key to designing contextualized lessons that develop these three areas is figuring out how to integrate the objectives and the lessons so that these three goals are being developed simultaneously rather than sequentially or separately. So how do you do this? So it's really important to think about how you set the stage for success in the IET model and how you build this new collaborative team. IET programs are by design partnerships between different departments, organizations, and staff, oftentimes who may not have worked together before and have different rules, different ways of teaching, and different organizational cultures. So in this new partnership, it's important to think about how are we going to bring these two instructors together and these two sets of administrators or departments together, and how do we launch this collaboration well? So one piece of advice that we've heard from the field is to identify and hire leaders. So those could be instructional leaders, coordinators of your program, essentially staff who are enthusiastic and experienced and who are willing to collaborate, experiment, and be committed to moving the students across the goal line together. You also want to set the expectation for co-planning and collaboration and have a plan to support that work. And we're going to hear from Evelyn and Yelena about how they've supported their teachers and how they've set up the plan for collaboration and continue to support it in an ongoing way in their programs. You definitely want to make sure that you have scheduled planning time for the teachers, both up front in the development of the integrated objectives in the curriculum and also ongoing, so that they can share information about the students and ask each other what's working, what's not, what are the needs, especially if they're in an alternating teaching relationship and their classes are not, and they're not teaching together. So the coordination becomes even more important. And you want to establish regular and ongoing communication between the teachers and as a coordinator and administrator of the program with those two teachers. So after you've sort of set that stage and you have your team in place, what is the process for developing a single and integrated set of learning objectives? Especially because you have two teachers who are often teaching in separate classrooms and are accustomed to teaching different content and have different teaching styles. How do you balance and teach to the multiple literacy, language, and career skill goals of these learners that are enrolled in both the career training and the adult education ESL classes? A collaborative approach to writing integrated learning objectives and the collaborative lesson planning help ensure that what the teachers are doing is coordinated and mutually supportive, and most importantly, support the mastery of the CTE course content and skill development. So let's take a minute first just to define what we mean by learning objectives and integrated learning objectives. So a learning objective, and I think you all know this on the call, is a statement that describes what the student will be able to do after instruction. What a single set of learning objectives is a set of statements that identifies specific adult ed content, workforce preparation activities, and workforce training competencies, and importantly indicates how they are organized to function cooperatively. And we're going to look at some examples in just a moment. But just to give you a sense of this, for a certified nurse assistant IET program and learning objective, learners will be able to, that's what students will be able to do after instruction, describe orally and in writing the legal and ethical implications in patient care, so that there's the writing and orally, which is a description of the literacy, as well as the legal and ethical implications in patient care, which is the career and technical content that they need to master. And the second one, record patient contacts in writing in an accurate manner. Both of these objectives are integrated and contextualized to the CNA track. So I'd like to ask the group in a minute about, when you're developing integrated objectives, what are some of the challenges and what are some of the strengths or the pros to doing integrated objectives. But first, let's talk about how you can collaborate to identify these objectives. So working with the support of the program administrator, the ESL and CTE teachers collaborate really on a process that starts with reviewing the CTE objectives, the syllabi, the course materials, assignments, and assessments. The CTE content really drives the content and goals for instruction in both the CTE and ESL IET class. After they've sort of familiarized themselves and shared those objectives and the materials, Then it's important to prioritize the CTE objectives that are most needed by the English language learners in order to successfully complete the workforce training and succeed on their job. So oftentimes in an IET model, the ESL instructor is not going to be able to support each and every aspect of the learning that goes on in the CTE class. And it's important to know, what are the priority areas? Where do students struggle? What do I need to focus on to help them master this material and the skills in the career training classroom? And so that's the third step, which is identifying those language and literacy skills that support those critical CTE objectives, and what needs to be scaffolded or provided to students to help them master that material. So just to recap, things to explore together as you begin in an IET teaching pair is to look at the CTE course objectives and material and ask, where do students struggle? What are the language and literacy skills required to master this CTE course material? And what activities and strategies can we use to help students understand the CTE content? How can we scaffold this often difficult and dense technical content that the students are engaging in? So when thinking about developing a single set of objectives, I'd just like to ask you, before we take a look at some of them, what are some of the challenges that you see in developing a single set of learning objectives? What do you think some of the challenges are that you might have as a teacher or as an administrator supporting the work of teachers in your program? I'm going to give you a minute to respond. And Marcella, if you start to see some responses, it'd be great to hear one or two.
Sure thing.
So what are some of the challenges when thinking about developing a single set of learning objectives?
So some of the things are narrowing the field, teacher turnover, which is always a huge challenge, students that are multi-level, that are multi-ESL levels.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And one that came to me privately was creating collaboration time.
Finding time to do it and coordinating schedules, always big issues.
Absolutely. So you guys are coming up with some of the ones that we also came up with. And, you know, these are real, requiring time for the development, that planning time. It can be hard to make the connection between English language learning and the career technical content sometimes. It's just not always straightforward how to support that work, and it requires some creativity and lesson planning. So what are some of the benefits to developing a single set of learning objectives in an IET model? I'd like to give you another minute to just give us some ideas about when we're doing it well, what are some of the benefits? Marcella, if you want to just help us as they come in,
Sure,
that would be great.
So we just got our first one, alignment, which is always very important.
Yes.
To make sure you're teaching the same thing. Focus is on the needs of the students. It's great. Having just a single set, getting students ready for the workforce.
Great. Those are great. Thank you all. Keep them coming. And we also shared some of those ideas that if there is alignment, it's more efficient in terms of creating synergies in the two classrooms, and it helps students see the connection between their language development and the development of their workforce and career skills and the career content, and it ensures integration of the components a little bit more seamlessly. So let's take a look at how to develop a single set of learning objectives and how it really works. This is the question I think that practitioners who are starting to develop integrated lessons ask the most, which is, how does this really work? What does an IET classroom really look like? What is the ESL teacher doing, and what is the CTE teacher doing, and how is that integration happening? We're going to watch a short video from an IET personal care assistant class at San Diego Community College now. And I'd just like to ask you, as you watch the video, to take some notes. So get out a piece of paper and jot down your thoughts on these 3 questions. What is the training content that's being taught in the video? What are the language and literacy skills being developed and practiced by the students? And what are the instructional strategies being used by the 2 teachers? So in this video, you'll see the ESL teacher, Donna Price, and the RN, the registered nurse instructor, sometimes in the classroom together and sometimes separately. So Vicki, thank you. Please show us our video.
Talking about the bed bath, about your client who is bed bound, and so you need to wash the client in the bed. So tell me, what supplies do you need? There are 2 more things we need.
Lotion.
Yeah, we need the lotion because you know aging skin is very dry, and we also need the chuck. Okay, let's see. So, can you raise your hand, please? How do you give the client privacy? Well, one person. Susanna.
Close the curtain.
Okay, you close the curtain. And is there another way you give the client privacy? Oh, I forgot. Everybody's going to need a Okay, so class, we're going to now listen to the article in the book about bed baths. We already talked about the supplies, so let's listen so you can get the pronunciation.
Page 53, bed baths. Full or partial bed baths are necessary for non-ambulatory residents. Encourage the resident to help as much as possible. Number 12, make a mitt of the washcloth by folding it in thirds around your hand. Fold the top down and tuck the bottom in under.
Okay, so let's do it. Take your washcloth and how does it say? Down. And tuck the bottom in under. And what do you have? A mitt. So the materials manager is going to give you an envelope, and in the envelope you have some pictures. And these pictures are the bed bath procedure. So you are going to put the pictures in order as they happen in the procedure. And practice your English. This goes first, this goes second. I agree, I don't agree. Okay, are you ready?
Second is wash my hands. This is wash my hands.
Okay, students, I have a, what is this? I have a problem box, and I have problems in here, and these are real problems that caregivers and nursing assistants gave me. So I want you to come up with a solution. Here's one of the problems. Your client doesn't want to take a bed bath. What can you do?
All right, listen everybody, look at me. All right, so we're gonna make sure your gloves are on, they're fit properly. Then we're gonna begin with the eyes. When you're gonna start with the head, but then we're gonna start with the eyes first. So ask the patient, please close your eyes, and then you're gonna start from the inside.
And he's going from where? From the inner to the outer of the eye.
Now we're gonna use the other side of the mitt to wash the other eye.
Another side.
Do you agree?
Yes.
And then, where are we going from there? Where do you go from there? The face, wash the whole face. Okay, students, so everyone, let's repeat the steps we have so far. Number 1, everyone, explain procedure. Give privacy. Number 2, eyes, good. Wash eyes, wet, wash all. Why don't you go ahead and copy the steps in your binder, and then we'll continue with the last 4 steps.
First, safety. Close your eyes. You don't have to touch. I'm going to touch. Just kind of go like you're. So go ahead, Jenny. You're going to read while she's doing it, the steps.
Okay. Begin with the eye.
And right here, you can ask, close your eyes, please.
Close your eyes.
Wash.
I'm gonna give you a build-up.
I'm going to wash your face. All right, all done. Okay, great job, Susanna, Jenny. You guys all done? We'll be testing you in a little.
Great. Thanks everybody for watching that video. So I'd like to ask you now, just to post in the chat quickly, what your video observations were. So what is the training content being taught in this video? What are the students learning, the actual content? Marcella, I'm hoping you can help. Yeah.
Yeah, the content is bed bath procedure. Yep, it looks like everybody got that.
Yep.
How to care for elderly.
Right. So even when the ESL teacher is leading the classroom or in the classroom on her own, it's really clear that the content that she's working with is the bed bath procedure in her ESL lessons. So what are the language and literacy skills being practiced and developed by students? What sorts of literacy and language did you see in there?
Vocabulary.
Yep.
Right, reading.
Yep.
They're reading from a textbook. They're learning vocabulary and phrases, sequencing, speaking, asking for permission.
Yes, great.
Yep.
All great. And there's a lot of language and literacy skills being developed in the context of this bed bath. And what were some of the instructional strategies that you noted as you watched? What were the ESL teacher and the RN teacher doing in terms of their teaching strategies?
They're writing notes to reinforce. They're doing it hands-on. They're modeling, repeating themselves. All these things.
Yep, great, exactly.
Use of realia, TPR, hair work.
Yes, yes, I appreciate
Great
that, right?
answers.
Yes,
Yeah.
so for the ESL teachers among us, realia, pair work, practice, repeating, all of those are skills that we use in our ESL classrooms are just being applied in this context of patient care. So I want you to think now about what the underlying objectives are in terms of the career content. So if we have to frame what we saw as an objective, like you have to do for your IELCE plans, how do you translate this so it's stated as an objective? So the one objective that I came up with when I watched this video for the CTE objective was, and you guys have said it, that students will be able to safely perform a bed bath, right? That's the clear CTE objective in this little snippet that we watched. And then I thought about what are the underlying objectives in terms of the language and literacy skills, and how do I frame those? And for this one, I came up with one that's related to the language and literacy. And if it sounds familiar, it's from Standard 7 of the English Language Proficiency Standards in Adult Ed. And this one is that students will adapt language choices to purpose, task, and audience when speaking. And this is an English language proficiency standard, and in this context, it's being applied to the CNA. And as you guys mentioned, what were the instructional strategies? The teachers are modeling the behavior and language they want to use. So how does this translate into creating an integrated objective, right? Right now we have two distinct CTE objective and a language of literacy objective. So when you're developing a single learning objective, right, we want to put them together. We want to take the CTE objective plus the language of literacy objective to create one integrated objective. And for me, as an adult educator, it always helps me to think about the teaching strategies that I'm using alongside of the objectives that I have. So I like to think about, this is my objective and what's the strategy am I going to use to teach to that objective. So let's look again at the objectives that I just talked about, that students will safely perform a bed bath, that their language and literacy objective in this case is to adapt their language choices to purpose, task, and audience when speaking. And the integrated objective would then be a combination of both. Students will safely perform a bed bath while communicating with their clients using language appropriate to their purpose, task, and audience. So that's really how we develop a single learning objective, or the single learning objective that we identified after watching this video. And again, as we talked about, the strategy that the teachers were using were modeling and using role play to help students practice both the language and the skill in that context. So this is another one that we also identified in the video, just to kind of give you a few models of how we think about it. Another CTE objective in that video is that students will certainly understand the procedural steps in giving a client a bed bath. So understanding and being able to recreate those steps. So what's the language and literacy objective there? That students will participate in level appropriate oral exchanges of information and ideas. And the integrated objective, when you combine the two, is that students will participate in level appropriate discussions of the process of giving a client a bed bath. So again, combining kind of the language requirements with the goals of the career and technical training and education. And in that instance, the strategy that the teachers were using were multiple, but I noticed the ESL teacher, Donna, giving those pictures to help students sequence the steps of the bed bath, and then also taking notes as the RN talked about it on the board with the students. So those are very classic kind of ESL teaching techniques that we might use with cutouts and realia, and also note-taking. So let's do this together now. Another underlying objective that we watched in the video, I think, or an objective of the patient care class, is to have students ensure the safety and comfort of their clients. We saw a lot of that demonstration of how to talk to the clients as the students are performing the procedure. And I thought of, for a language and literacy objective, that students will create clear and coherent level appropriate speech when it comes to creating that safety and comfort of their clients. So let's try to combine these two. Could you guys go ahead and type in the chat what your ideas are for a combined integrated objective, and try to start with students will be able to.
And Amy, as people are typing, we have a question about whether it matters if you start with the ESL or the CTE objective.
That's a great question. I think that the CTE curriculum drives pretty much everything that is happening in terms of the contextualization around ESL. So I would say you want to first look at the CTE objectives and the demands in that course, and then say, what do my students need to be able to know and do to meet those objectives? So in a way, I think the CTE objectives really are the first ones to start with. and then you determine sort of what needs to be the language and literacy focus to support the content of that CTE.
And Amy, can I add to that? I think
Mhm.
Theobi was asking also just about how to write them down. And I think they could come either way, but I think I would be consistent as to which comes first in your list so that both of your teachers are understanding, what the objective is.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, and we have a few objectives that people came up with. Students will be able to use clear and coherent, level appropriate speech to ensure safety and comfort of their clients.
Great.
They'll be able to ensure safety and comfort of their clients using clear and coherent, level appropriate speech. Yeah,
Great.
It looks like everybody's coming up
Great.
with
And that's
similar
exactly
things.
that's great. And that's pretty much what we came up with. Students will ensure the safety and comfort of their clients by using clear and coherent speech. So that's great. And in terms of the instructional strategies that we saw, used in the video, the teachers providing direct instruction, opportunities for practicing that speech, and also targeted feedback. We saw both the RN instructor and the ESL instructor providing corrections or helping to support students in the practice of those skills. So just to recap quickly, you want to first look at the specific objective that relates to the CTE content. And so Toynbee, to get to your question, it is important to start with the career technical. And ask yourself, what is the language and literacy objective that supports mastery of that CTE skill or content? And you can be specific, in regard to if it's oral communication or reading and writing objective, a vocabulary development. And then you want to combine the two, starting with a verb. The students will be able to. We sent you beforehand a planning worksheet. This worksheet provides a couple of examples that we offer, but we're hoping you can use this to develop your own program-specific objectives. And the worksheet will be posted online on the CALPRO site, so it can be downloaded and easily shared with your IET team and your partners. So I want to move on to what I consider to be the best part of this workshop, which is inviting our practitioners to talk about how it works in their programs in California. I'm excited to invite Evelyn Jackson, who is an ESL teacher and the IELCE coordinator at Huntington Beach, to join us. Feel free to type your questions for Evelyn in the chat as we go. So welcome, Evelyn.
Hi, Amy. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you tell us, Evelyn, a little bit about Huntington Beach Adult School and your role and the IET programs there?
Yes, of course. Our school serves over 1,200 ESL students per semester. We have 10 different campuses, which includes 3 of our main sites in Huntington Beach, Westminster, and Costa Mesa. This year, we are very pleased to have 37 ESL classes open. I am an ESL instructor as well as the EL Civics coordinator for our school. Our IET programs include early childhood education, in which we follow the alternate teaching method. This class was actually our very first IET class, which we implemented back in fall 2018. This class is offered in collaboration with one of our consortium partners, Orange Coast College. Also in the fall, we offered the personal care aid class, again in collaboration with OCC. In this class, we follow the co-teaching method. Again, in the fall, we offered our computer basics class. Now, in this particular class, we follow a special alternate teaching method in that 2 of our ESL teachers are also certified to teach CTE, which means that in one class, the teacher wears 2 hats per se. So now this fall, 2019, we started a business office careers class in which we follow a particular co-teaching method. 1 day a week, an instructor from our CTE department goes to the ESL class and provides instruction, while our ESL teacher is in the classroom to provide language and literacy support. In spring 2020, we will be starting a Microsoft Word for Beginners class. And again, our same teachers who teach the computer basics will provide instruction following the special alternate teaching method.
Great. Thanks, Evelyn. You guys have a lot going on, and I appreciate how you use different co-teaching and alternating teaching approaches depending upon what the program is and the partnership requires. So can you tell us a little bit about how the IET collaborative planning process works, even though you do have those different models and many different programs?
Yes, as with all ideas, in order for it to work, there has to be a plan. Once it was decided that we would set everything in motion and begin the early childhood education class, a meeting was held which included my assistant principal, Susan Torres, the project director of adult education from OCC, the outreach specialist also from OCC, the early childhood education instructor, and myself. And so in the meeting, we discussed the length of classes, the days, the hours, etc. Then afterwards, the ECE instructor and I met on our own. We discussed the curriculum based on their course outline. And as you can imagine, the objectives were quite extensive. And so I asked if there were 2 things that she'd want the students to walk away with, what would they be? And of course, we know everything is important, but we have to look at which would be the most important piece of knowledge and or skill that students would put to use in their real life work experiences.
Great. So you guys were pretty much saying, as the ESL, contextualized ESL IET teacher, you couldn't really support all aspects of the reading material and the curriculum, but that you wanted to know what was essential for them to master and how could you support that. So thank you. How do the teachers at Huntington Beach determine the integrated objectives and curriculum across all those programs? What's the process?
Communication. Communication is definitely the key, and of course, taking lots of notes. So after meeting with the ECE instructor, I had my homework to do. I read through the college course outline and objectives thoroughly. I browsed through their textbook, and actually I felt I had to read a couple of the chapters just to kind of get a sense of better understanding. And then I read through our school's course outline, and I had to find a correlation between the 2 different subject matters. So in taking both outlines, and I always refer to the depth of knowledge wheel, I was able to conclude with one integrated objective, which was matching technical skills with language skills. The lessons were centered around new vocabulary, its pronunciation, reading comprehension, writing, and most importantly, speaking activities.
Great. So you've shared an example of one of your integrated objectives from early childhood. Could you just walk us through this for a minute?
Yes, of course. So as you can see, I took one objective from the college course outline. Now this one, we do 2 ECE classes. It's the 180 and the 190 class. But this one is from the 190 class. And the focus of this class is on the socialization of a child with respect to the interrelationship of family, school, and the community. So the CTE objective, identify the various systems and methods of socialization. And then I took ours from our ESL course outline, the language and literacy objective, make comparisons, differentiating among sorting and classifying items, information, or ideas. And I put them together, and I was able to conclude with one integrated objective, identify and explain the differences between the various systems and methods of socialization. And so in the ESL support class, students have the opportunity to review what they've learned, but it's so important. It's in the actual explanation process in which students can fully understand the vocabulary and the content, as well as practice their speaking skills through various activities such as different scenarios and examples.
Great. So you're taking this CTE objective, but then, as I think you said to me on a call, you're ESLifying it, which I love.
Making it ESL, yes.
Exactly. So how does the ongoing collaboration work at Huntington Beach? So I know that you spent a good amount of time, and your instructors in these other courses spend time up front planning with their teaching partner, but how does it continue at Huntington Beach?
Well, first and foremost, I think what's so important is that you want to maintain that close rapport with the IET instructor. Keeping an open communication goes beyond the initial meeting and planning, and it actually extends beyond, what are you teaching? And okay, I'll teach this lesson this way. When I used to teach the ESL support class for ECE last year, the college instructor and I would talk briefly before she began each class, and this was every week. So it's pretty regular that she and I would communicate. I would ask how the students were doing, and she'd give me feedback on how they were progressing. This was also essential before exams and when papers were due. My goal was to make sure my students were clear on expectations, especially at the college level. More importantly, we would discuss what can be done differently to improve the overall success of the students. And this wasn't just while the students were taking the class, but it was even afterwards that she and I would keep in touch. Whenever my students would have questions, I would email her, and right away she'd email me her response. So I guess in summary, the key has to be a good, well-rounded partnership between both instructors.
Great, thank you so much.
So we have just
Marcella, do we have questions?
Yeah, we have a couple of questions. One in particular, I want to make sure that we get to. I know we don't really have a lot of time, but it was, what was the end outcome of the ECE-CTE course? Was it foundational or certification? Did the students gain college credit? Someone else asked, sort of building on that, doesn't the course need to prepare them for work, and they should be ready to work after the course?
Well, yes, they do. What it begins with is they do take the ECE 180 and 190 class. Actually, it's Human Development 180 and 190. While or after completion of each course, they do get college credits. It's only with those 2 college credits that they need in which they can begin the application process. And I believe that after completing the 2, they can begin looking for work as an assistant teacher or someone as a helper to actually be in the classroom. So they would already be gaining experience in the classroom.
Right. So they're earning an early childhood educational credential through that sequential coursework.
And
but it also has college credit. Yeah.
Yes, college credit. And if I may add, it's not just a 2. So after they're done with those 2 classes, then at OCC, they would continue. And I believe it's 6 more classes before they can get another certificate. So, but again, with just the 2.
Right, it's a stackable, it's envisioned as a stackable credential. And Evelyn, I'm sure that folks are gonna wanna hear more about the early childhood credentials. So I think Evelyn would probably be very happy to share what she knows with you guys after this webinar, I hope.
Yes, definitely.
So I wanna make sure we have time for our next presenter from Fremont Adult and Continuing Education. Thank you so much, Evelyn. So today we have Yelena Zimlon, who is an ESL teacher and the ESL department chair, as well as the IELCE WIOA coordinator at Fremont. Welcome, Yelena. Okay. We might have to unmute you, Yelena.
And here with me, hello everyone, and thank you, Amy, for your introduction. Here with me is Gigi Dornfest, the ESL IELC IET teacher, our ESL teacher who actually, can get all the credit for creating this companion course and creating the IET program with this particular pathway.
Wonderful. Well, welcome, Yelena and Gigi. Can you just tell us a little bit about the Fremont Adult School and the IET models you have?
Yes, it looks like think the size of our ESL program is similar to that of Huntington Beach School. And as you see, we have the number of classes that is also pretty close to their number. At this point, we have 4 current IET models. The first one is BankWorks Career Training, then Pharmacy Tech, that we will focus on today, AutoCAD Drafting and Design that we just started, and Hospitality and Tourism, also since September 2019. All of these models, all of these programs are based on alternating teaching. So instruction happens contextually and simultaneously, but not in the same classroom. The ESL course and the career preparation designed in it happens, well, concurrently, but alternatively with the class. So let me focus on the pharmacy technology.
Great.
So just to tell you a few things about how this program has evolved is, well, we have a small but strong consortium, Southern Alameda County Consortium, and Mission Valley ROP is our partner that offers a pharmacy technology training program for adults. This is their only program that serves adults in the community. In the fall 2017, before we even thought of creating IET programs, MVROP requested that we help them with their English language learners in the program. They had a very, very high dropout rate, and they asked us to create a transitional class for English language learners. It took us 5 months to research and develop the curriculum for the course. And well, Gigi worked tirelessly, and I was supporting her in this. So she immersed herself in the pharmacy tech curriculum. By the way, Gigi has a very strong science background. The objectives for the course were created as we were doing this. And Gigi created a complete class syllabus, a weekly schedule. And so by February 2018, we were able to start the course promotion, student recruitment, registration, etc. Each student has to go through an application process where we check we give them a CASAS test, CASAS reading test. We also focus on listening. We provide an opportunity to see whether they are verbal and understand, and they also create a writing sample. So in March 2018, we launched that first preparatory bridge class. And it's a class of 8 weeks, 5 hours a week, that culminates in a final examination. And the examination is not ours, it's from MVROP. So this is their entrance exam into MVROP Pharmacy Technology Program. We also found out at that time that our English language learners that transitioned into MVROP program would require ongoing language support. And this is where we started, we continued working together with MVROP, creating this simultaneous class, we called it a support class, where Gigi went to MVROP, that is fortunately located only 10 minutes away from our campus, twice a week to provide support for English language learners, not only the ones that graduated from our bridge class, but also those who joined ROP on their own. The enrollment to ROP happens in August. So that pilot worked successfully, in this alternate instruction model, and this we have continued it the following year. And so what seems to be the strength of this program is that it combines a pretty rigorous and intensive preparation bridge course and the support course, which happens during the actual ROP instruction. ROP CTE course is rigorous. It provides close to 300 instructional hours and externships where students get practice working at local pharmacies. And in order to qualify for those externships, they have to have good communication skills and equally good soft skills. So this is what Gigi has been working with them on, while also, using our pharmacy objective number 30. And this year, actually looking at how it works, she's been using Objective 37, focusing more on soft skills as per the request from the CTE instructor.
Thank you, Yelena. I really appreciate the model, you know, how different the models can be that you and Evelyn have both talked about, and how for this model you guys built the contextualized bridge class that then turned into an alternating instruction once the technical training started. And you talked just now about the integrated learning objectives. So I'm going to ask you to share with us a sample of what some of those farm tech integrated learning objectives are, because up until now we've really just looked at single learning objectives in this webinar, but these are some that you have identified that are, it's not just one, but these are some in a series that you have identified, you and Gigi.
That's right. In our plan, we have 12 objectives in this model, pharmacy model. And so as you can see, looking at the list of these objectives, you can probably clearly see the CTE part of them and the language and literacy part of them. We see this understand and interpret, and we see the technical context, medication orders, and they have to be given orally and in written form. So we can very clearly see how communication skills interact with the specific specialized pharmacy tech context in all of these objectives. I don't want to go into much detail, but that definitely, these objectives were developed from our intimate knowledge of the CTE curriculum and our understanding of the IELC objective that we incorporate in the instruction, as well as the needs of the students, of course.
Right, great. So Yelena, I want to make sure that we have time. We only have a few minutes left. So I want to make sure that I know you have a lot of ideas about recipes for success, but maybe you can just hit on one or two that you think folks really need to practice in order to be successful at this.
Right. Yes, of course. So I think that it's very important, and we have been fortunate to have wonderful instructors, very strong instructors. I mentioned Gigi's science background. That was really super helpful. And also it's very important on the administration's side to compensate teachers for curriculum development and collaboration time. Indeed, it is a very time-consuming process if we want to create a valuable product. So that, to me, is a very important part. And also, to me, it's very important that we try to respect boundaries and respect the integrity of the CTE course, especially in a situation with partners, outside partners, where, as you mentioned, Amy, who have different teaching styles, etc. So that has really worked. And the communication, just as Evelyn said, must be ongoing. And actually, Gigi is a master at that. And I just have a whole set of her emails back and forth that I could demonstrate to show you what it really involves. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I see here that Lori is commenting in the chat that the 2020 IELC plan will probably ask for 8 to 15 integrated objectives, just to kind of give folks a sense of sort of where they're going, but that agencies should write the number that has been determined and needed by the program and by the co-instructors. Thank you, Lori, for clarifying that. We only have a few minutes left, so Marcella, is there one other question that we need to address, or are they addressed in the chat?
No, they're not addressed in the chat. There were some specific questions about like what the CT pathway was. So
For farm tech? For pharmacy tech?
No, for sorry, it was actually earlier for Evelyn.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm wondering if maybe we'll just ask Evelyn and Yelena to maybe help us come up with some answers to a few of these questions that we can send out.
Sure, that sounds like a good plan. Yeah. I'd like to ask you guys now, thank you all for participating. We'd love to hear from you in our last minute. What's one concrete takeaway from today's meeting that you think you'll implement based on today's discussion, or something that you want to act on after today's discussion? I'll give you a minute to respond to that. More collaboration and planning time. Yes, it's critical. And I think often, I'll speak for myself as an IET administrator, I really underestimated that when I started this work at LaGuardia Community College. Clear understanding of a single set of objectives. Thank you, Lupe. Yes, I'm glad that we were able to provide some clarity. Writing, how to write the objectives, getting time for the teachers together. Yes, Lance, I agree. The examples are really helpful, right, from the practitioners. And I really appreciate that they were here, steps to take for future work. Great. Thank you all very much. I don't want to keep you much longer, but I do want to share some upcoming professional development opportunities in IET and IELC with you. Right now, we're offering through CALPRO an IET implementation clinic where you can send a team from your agency, ideally an ESL, CTE, teacher combination, and their coordinator or administrator, to a hybrid training. And it's pretty deep and rich learning on how to build all the component parts of the IET model. So if you're interested, please visit the application for more information. We are taking applications only through next week. So if you're interested, please take a look now. Lori and CASAS also have a series of EL Civics conferences coming up. And they'll be sharing this information, and you can register online, but they're in all parts of the state starting in January and running through the springtime. You'll find a recording of this webinar if you want any of this information or you want to share it with your colleagues on the CalPro website, and we'll also be sending that out to you afterward. And finally, we'll be also sending you a link to a form. We'd love your feedback on today's webinar as we continue to strengthen our professional development IET offerings. And I want to give a big thank you to Evelyn and Yelena and Lori for being part of this, as well as the CalPro staff team for their help today. And thanks to all of you for participating. I wish you all a happy Friday. Take care.
And thank you, Amy, for a great webinar.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, guys. Excellent.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care. Have a good weekend, everybody.
You too.